Now more than ever, Lowe's knows you don't just want a low price, you want the lowest price. And with our lowest price guarantee, you can count on us for competitive prices on all your home improvement projects. If you find a qualifying lower price somewhere else on the same item, we'll match it. Lowe's, we help, you save. Price match applies the same item, current price at qualifying retailers. Exclusions and terms apply. Learn how we'll match price at lowes.com/lowest price guarantee.
Hey, Howard.
In case you need a lawyer, here's my business card. I'm attorney Howard Ankin.
Oh, hey, Howard.
If you or someone you know has been hurt at work, Ankin Law can get the medical bills paid, the lost wages reimbursed,
Oh, hey, Howard.
and the compensation you deserve.
Hey, Howard.
We're one of the largest filers throughout the state of Illinois of workers' compensation claims. We're here to help. Call 312-6-million. Injury law made personal, that's Ankin Law.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine Podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis, James Fegan, and Josh Nelson.
Thanks, Rob, and welcome to a new episode of the Sox Machine Podcast, presented by Aiken Law. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and this is a special edition of the show as we record this on Saturday, July 5th, 2025, as we will be previewing the upcoming 2025 MLB Draft that will be held next week on July 13th through the 14th. We've been covering the MLB Draft prospects all season long since Valentine's Day, and now we at Sox Machine have released our top 100 prospect list. Soon we'll have our updated mock drafts and additional player reports. There's also the news of Colson Montgomery being promoted and joining the White Sox in Denver for the series against the Colorado Rockies. Join us to preview the upcoming 2025 MLB Draft is one of our best friends of the show. You can watch and break down the picks as they happen on Sunday, July 13th on MLB Network, as the draft is hosted in Atlanta this summer. For MLB.com, it's Jim Callis. Jim, welcome back to the Sox Machine Podcast, especially during this, what I assume is a very quiet time for you.
Yeah, I'm just chilling out, waiting to go to Atlanta. Yeah, no, it's always good to talk to you, and it's kind of like you can see the light at the end of the tunnel now. Like the draft is only 8 days away as we record this, so yeah, it is a busy time of year.
Before we get into the draft talk, Chicago White Sox, the day before we record this, called up officially Colson Montgomery to the Major League squad, and Colson Montgomery played shortstop for the White Sox against the Colorado Rockies. And he went 0 for 2. His first plate appearance resulted in catcher's interference, which is the first time since they've been tracking that type of error since 1961 that someone's MLB debut at bat resulted in catcher's interference. But Montgomery went 0 for 2, reached on that error, and also walked. He made a fantastic defensive play, saving a run for the White Sox with an over-the-shoulder catch, and made a nice, nifty double play along with Chase Mydroth for the 4-6-3 double play against the Rockies. So defensively impressive for Montgomery. We're still waiting as we record this to see his first hit. But the timing of the call-up, Jim. Montgomery has been struggling this year in AAA. What are your thoughts about the White Sox giving Montgomery that opportunity now to be their everyday shortstop?
Yeah, I think they were trying to give him some positive reinforcement, and we've talked about Colson, since they drafted him, and he's, we talk, he's kind of a prospect enigma the last couple of years. At the beginning of his career, he kind of hit everywhere he went, and as we talked about in the show, I thought we being MLB Pipeline were a little bullish on him coming into the year, and then he obviously struggled again. But I mean, this is a guy who hit 218 in 51 games in AA, and he's played 185 games in AAA, and he's hit 215, and he just hadn't hit upper level pitching, and he got off. And it's been such a weird last couple of years because, as we talked about, I think there was fans, and probably writers too, who thought he had a chance to be their opening day shortstop in 2024. And he didn't win the job, and he went to Charlotte, and he frankly had a terrible year where he rebounded a little bit in September and then played well for a couple of weeks of the fall league. And talking to the White Sox, and I'm sure you've done the same, they said, look, he was disappointed and he tried to do too much and it was a learning experience. So it'll be good for him. Okay, like that's fine. And he's young. Like he's probably not he isn't the first guy who probably was disappointed they didn't make the big league team and let it affect his play. And all that's well and good, but it's still at that point, it was concerning looking at those AA and AAA numbers. And then he came out this year and he was even worse in April. Like he hit 160 with almost a 40% strikeout rate.
Yeah.
And he wound up going on the developmental list and going back to Arizona. And, he did have a pretty strong June. He had 6 home runs. He hit 280. He had a couple multi-homer games at the end of the month. He still struck out 30% of the time, which concerns me. But I think this was a case, and we've talked about it, obviously, where the team is now. It's not like you're trying to win the AL Central and you're making moves with the present in mind. I think they were trying to reward him for, look, he's made some progress. He's done well. He's been in AAA now for a year and a half. Let's call him up and see what it looks like. Which is fine. I think all that makes, and it makes sense to me too, thinking about it. If you're going to call him up, you want to do it while he's playing pretty well, so he's confident. So I think that was the timing of it. I mean, the only reason you could, I think to maybe wait longer was if you wanted to manipulate the service time and make sure he didn't get more than 45 days, and then he's eligible for Rookie of the Year next year. And if he makes your opening roster and he wins Rookie of the Year, you get an extra draft pick. But I mean, there's a lot going into that, and you would have had to wait another 6 weeks. So I think it makes sense to call him up. I mean, and see, let's see how it looks. And look, if he if he struggles for a month, then you send him back to AAA, and he knows what he needs to work on. But I mean, if you look at their big league roster, he's best suited to play shortstop of anybody on the roster right now, isn't he? Also.
Yeah, Chase Meitroth has been playing above average defensively at shortstop, according to the StatCast data. But James Fegan has been asking White Sox personnel, Jim, all season long, how confident are you in Meitroth being the everyday shortstop? And they view Meitroth more of a utility guy. So that's the vote of confidence from the White Sox perspective is, it's great that Chase can play shortstop, but we don't expect him to be the everyday shortstop. So to your point, I think the White Sox at this moment are still hoping that Colson Montgomery takes the reins at that position.
Yeah, and Chase, if you're projecting Chase as a regular, it's probably second base. He has played a little better short than I would have thought he would have, but Chase, it's funny. Like I sometimes hear. And I'm not trying not to. Like I sometimes hear people talking like Chase Meitroth, like on sports talk radio here in Chicago. Oh, like he's a building block. The dude's slugging 299. Like he kind of is what he is. He makes a ton of contact. He draws some walks, and there's not very much power there. And he probably is best suited as that on base utility guy bouncing all over the infield. But yeah, I think for this team right now, like why not? Like Colson has played better. Let's reward him. Like he is, certainly if you look at the big league club and who's in the farm system, our shortstop of the future, maybe that'll change, when we see who they get in the draft. Because I think all signs are pointing to shortstop at 10 just because of the nature of the draft. But I think it makes sense to call him up and see what he can do. And like I said, if he struggles, you're not beholden to keep, it's not like they're like, okay, well, he's up for this whole second half. If he were for some reason struggle in the big leagues, I think, you let him play for a month every day, then you send him back to AAA, and then you call him back up in September. But yeah, it's funny. I'm so focused on the draft this time of year, Josh. Like, I'm not really locked in on like, okay, who's each team going to call up, or I wasn't really considering, Colson might come up. I'd seen he had a couple 2-homer games, and then when it happened, it's like, okay, I get what the thinking is.
Yeah, it's funny because at the end of June, he goes 3 for 22 with 9 strikeouts against Gwinnett. The next series against Toledo that everybody saw on social media, 11 for 22 with 4 home runs. So, and then his last series in AAA before joining the White Sox, he goes 1 for 7. We'll see offensively what Montgomery can do, but at least defensively in his debut, he made some impressive plays and helped the White Sox get that 3-2 win over the Rockies.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on Auto Trader. Just you wait. Auto Trader.
Between vacations, errands, and everyday summer chaos, sticking to your health goals can be tough. Luckily, Thrive Market does the hard work for you. We're the online healthy grocery store that cuts out the junk ingredients and delivers high-quality groceries right to your door. From low-sugar beach snacks to organic grill night staples, no matter your health goal, we make shopping healthy a breeze. Go to thrivemarket.com/podcast for 30% off your first order and a free $60 gift.
You can go to MLB.com, check out the rest of the top 100 prospects. The White Sox do have 4 top prospects in MLB's top 40. It's Noah Schultz, Kyle Teal for now, but he's going to be graduating off that list eventually, Braden Montgomery, and Hagen Smith. Switching over to the MLB Draft, the first 3 rounds of the MLB Draft show will start at 5 p.m. Central Time on Sunday, July 13th. Rounds 4 through 20 will be streamed on MLB.com starting at 10:30 a.m. Central Time on Monday, July 14th, which leads up to the Home Run Derby on that day. You can check out my top 100 rankings on SoxMachine.com as I have LSU's left-handed pitcher Cade Anderson number 1 in my rankings. But Jim, on MLB.com, it's Ethan Holliday number 1 overall for you guys. Why do you have Holliday number 1 overall?
I think we've leaned a little bit more towards ceiling there. I think he's the best power hitter in the draft, the most usable power. It's a potential 35 homer guy. He's already 6'4", 210, so I don't know that he stays at shortstop. I think he probably winds up at third base. But, he's kind of reminiscent, physically of what his dad, Matt, who was a 7-time All-Star, looked like, coming out of high school. And his dad was not nearly as much money as guys are today. But his dad was a pretty big money signing, even though he was a 7th rounder, because he was also ticketed to play quarterback in college also. And it's interesting to me, Matt, I don't think it's a coincidence his son's bat left-handed. Matt was a right-handed hitter, but Matt made sure they grew up as left-handed hitters. But I think he's a similar, he's got that similar frame already. But yeah, it's an interesting draft because I don't really feel like anybody has separated themselves, or even not just has no single player separated himself from the pack. If you look at the last couple drafts, there isn't even somebody you'd say, okay, was on the top tier 7 or 8 guys from last year's draft, or the top 5 guys from 2 years ago when we were just loaded with guys who you would have thought, I think back to Walker Jenkins went 5th in 2023 and JJ Weatherholt went 7th in 2024. And I feel like both those guys would be slam dunk number 1 picks if they were in this year's draft. It's a different draft where the top, there's good players, sure, but there isn't A, nobody's separating themselves, and B, there aren't those guys who are like, oh man, that guy's an obvious number 1 pick.
Yeah, I think you can make the case for 4 or 5 guys to go number 1 overall, which leads to my next question with what you were hearing a week before the MLB draft. With Ethan Holliday number 1 on your guys' list, is he the favorite to go number 1 overall to the Washington Nationals?
I think there are co-favorites. I think it's Cade Anderson, the lefty from LSU, who you mentioned to top your guys' rankings, and then Ethan Holliday. But I think if you told me it was Seth Hernandez, the high school pitcher from California, if you told me it was Eli Willits, who's a pretty well-rounded shortstop from Oklahoma, if you told me it was Iva Arquette, who's on one hand the best college position player in this draft, on the other hand, if he's in last year's draft, I don't think he goes ahead of Cam Smith, who went 14th. And I'm saying that not based on Cam Smith going quickly to the big leagues. I'm just saying if you're stacking up the players at the time of the draft. So I don't think there's a favorite. Since we're in the bonus pool era, and this is true every year, Josh, the team that's picking number 1, it behooves them, and I'm not saying they're being disingenuous, but it behooves them to say, oh, man, we're looking at a lot of options. We're not sure, because, you're trying to save as much money as you can with your bonus pool and have it to spend. And, even last year, Travis Pisano went number 1 to Cleveland. And I do think he was probably their top guy. But, we were supposed to interview Travis Pisano we do an hour pre-draft show before the draft starts on MLB Network. And we were supposed to interview him around a half hour before the draft started. And he texted and said, hey, we're talking to the Guardians. I can't come on the show right now. And so, the teams will take it to the wire because I don't know if it matters every time, but look, if you save an extra $100,000 on a player, that means you can give your 13th rounder $250,000. That might make a difference in the end. So, the Nationals aren't tipping their hand publicly. I think in the end, it probably comes down to Holliday versus Anderson. I went with Anderson my last mock draft. I don't think his ceiling is as high as Ethan Holliday's, but his floor is pretty good. It's interesting. LSU won the national championship 2023. They had the number one pick in 2023 in Paul Skeens, who, if I remember correctly, was Paul Skeens MVP of the College World Series? I can't even remember. I feel like he was.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, and so Kate Anderson just won the national championship, was MVP of the College World Series, could be the number one pick. I mean, they're totally different pitchers because it's lefty-righty. Paul Skeens is a lot more physical. I think the thing they have in common the most is ability to command multiple pitches. But Skeens has kind of, top of the scale dominant stuff. And Kate Anderson, and I feel like I'm selling him short here. It's like, and this is rare, but he's got 4 above average to plus pitches. I don't think any of them is like a wipeout pitch, but all 4 of those can be better than average pitches. And you could see, if anybody watched College World Series, the last game he pitched was a 1-0 shutout in the finals. And, I was just extolling, his command. He didn't have fastball command that day. Like, I think he walked 5, which was a career high, and he was having trouble locating the fastball, and he still pitched a 1-0 shutout, which kind of shows you what he's able to do with his other pitches. Like that almost was more impressive to me, that he wasn't putting he couldn't locate his fastball, but he still pitched a 1-0 shutout. So anyway, I think it probably comes down to one of those 2 guys in the end, but like I said, it could be one of those other 3 guys I mentioned perhaps as well.
So if Holliday doesn't go number 1 overall, you got the Angels and you got the Mariners, which Seattle got very lucky in the draft lottery to be selecting 3rd overall. If Holliday doesn't go number 1, is he dropping to number 4 to Colorado and they're celebrating?
Yeah, I think if Colorado was picking number 1, they would take Ethan Holliday.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would be very, like, I've heard, and again, none of this stuff's set in stone because it behooves all the teams to kind of be like, we're not sure. It's not as bad as the NFL draft where you can actually trade up and down, and so everybody lies to everybody because you can't say, hey, we love this guy, and the other team's like, oh, we better go up and get him. But I haven't heard anything that the Angels or the Mariners would take Ethan Holliday. Like that would, I would, well, I don't know if I'd fall out of my chair, but I would be very shocked because we've heard nothing like that. So yeah, I think he goes number 4. I think the biggest lock in the draft, if you could put one player in one position, if he's on the board, would be Ethan Holliday at number 4. I'll say 100%. Like I would be absolutely floored if Ethan Holliday was there at 4 and you heard the Rockies say another name. I mean, and if that happened, the Cardinals would take him at 5. But yeah, he's I think very much in the mix at 1, not at all at 2 and 3. And like I said, pretty much a lock to go 4. Whereas Kane Anderson, if he doesn't go 1, I think he probably goes 2, although you could argue that the Angels might get a better discount by taking another lefty, Liam Doyle from Tennessee. And so they might do that to save more money. And then in which case, I think Kate Anderson would be a lock to go 3. So Kate Anderson goes 1, 2, or 3. Ethan Holliday goes 1 or 4.
Got it. So when you're looking at the first 10 picks and you're doing these mock drafts, which you can go to MLB.com and check out Jim's latest mock draft. When you're just looking at the first 10 picks, Jim, which team is the hardest right now to predict what they will do with their first round pick?
Factoring in that obviously the deeper you go in the draft, it becomes harder because you have to know who comes off the board. And it's just like when I get to like the Pirates at 6, it's almost hard and it's almost easy and hard because there's kind of like 6 guys who I think are pretty much going the top 6 picks. I mean, there's an upper tier. That top tier is probably 9 or 10 players. And for the Pirates, I just give them whoever's left over. But do I have confidence that and it always winds up being Ivar Arquette. Like every time I've done a mock, but like, do I really think Ivar Arquette's getting to 6? I don't. That's the way it's played out. I think the toughest pick for me right now, I'm assigning like weighting, degree of difficulty. So like the earlier picks should be easier. I think the hardest pick is Seattle. And I think it kind of goes with how difficult, like just people not separating themselves. Like I said, I think Seattle would take Kate Anderson if he was there. That would be easy. And they have a good farm system. They have 9 top 100 prospects, the first 7 of whom are all position players, most of whom are young. And again, you don't draft for need. You don't draft for need at the top of the draft. But they could use a pitcher. And basically the strength at the top of the draft is college pitchers and high school shortstops. So like ideally you'd get a pitcher at 3. But if Kate Anderson's not there, I just don't know what direction they go in. I went Seth Hernandez, the high school right-hander in my last mock draft at 3. I don't know that I really believe, like I believe it because I put in my mock. I don't know how confident I am that that's going to be the pick. I think they really like Seth Hernandez. I think like a lot of teams, picking a high school right-hander that high is tough just because of the risk involved. And so I almost feel like they're going to be on Hernandez. And then when it comes time to make the pick, and this happens with a lot of teams, not just high school righties, like leading up to draft, the high school guys, regardless of position, are really attractive. And then it comes to draft day, and you're more comfortable taking a college guy. So I almost feel like I put Seth Hernandez there. I'm analyzing myself here to show the possibility, but I'll bet when I do my final mock on the wee hours of July 12th, bleeding into July 13th, it probably won't be Seth Hernandez. Like I mentioned, Ivar Arquette. I mean, he's a hitter.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would be an easy one to do, like just on the comfort level. But like, I don't know that they love Arquette. I think they like him. I think Doyle's interesting to them if the Angels don't take him number 2. But he's also like not troublesome, but like Doyle was probably the most dominant starting pitcher in college baseball this year. But man, his delivery just you'd be hard pressed to find a starting pitcher whose delivery looks like Liam Doyle's. Doesn't mean it can't be done. You can throw out the argument that the really good player, the great players, don't have comps. They do it uniquely. But man, Doyle, there's a lot going on and a lot of tempo in that delivery. Like it's for White Sox fans, I kind of put in perspective of Carson Fulmer. And I love Carson Fulmer. I love Carson Fulmer, where it's just like, how many guys start like that? Like, and Liam Doyle dominant, but didn't pitch as well at the end of the season. And you're pitching every 7th day, 16 times, instead of every 5th day, 32 times. So anyway, I think they're intrigued by Doyle, but that's kind of in the back of your mind. Jamie Arnold is another lefty. He's not the most physical lefty, and it's more of that low slot, like kind of slingy delivery at times. Which I'll be honest, if you command your stuff, it doesn't bother me. I mean, going back, we've had this conversation. Like people are like, when the White Sox got Chris Sale, the reason he lasted as long as he did was twofold. Like one I've written a lot of things that are wrong, but that year there was a clear top 3 because I think that was the Harper, Tyone, Manny Machado year. Yeah. I wrote a column for Baseball America. I said, everybody's talking how there's no clear number 4. The clear number 4 guy is Chris Sale, and I was right on that one. But he dominated the Cape. He's pitching Florida Gulf Coast, which was maybe Atlantic Sun at the time. It wasn't, but I was like, this guy dominated the Cape Cod League. He was really good as a sophomore. He was really good as a junior. But you had so many people are like, it's that you look at his delivery and it's such a low arm angle and guys can't do that and start. And Chris Sale's been pretty good. And I mean, we all remember, the World Series where Madison Bumgarner, you heard the same thing. Oh man, he's just a slinger. Well, Madison Bumgarner, not single-handedly, but was the dominant force in the Giants winning the 2014 World Series and helped them win 3 World Series. And you go on. There's a lot of guys with low arm angles, but Jamie Arnold, like it's not traditional. So that's there. You hear they could cut deals. And cutting deals is tricky because if you go to the combine and you take a physical, you can only have, you are guaranteed 75% of slot. Like if you went to the combine, Josh, you did a physical, I can't say, hey, Josh, we don't like your shoulder. So we're going to offer you, like, I have to offer you 75% of my slot. So, but I've heard like they could cut a deal maybe for somebody like JoJo Parker, who I know we're going to talk about with the White Sox pick. And I think JoJo Parker, I think everybody's kind of fallen in love with JoJo Parker. And he interviewed great. Like I think he was one of the best interviews at the combine also, which kind of put the cherry on top. But the Mariners pool is $9.5 million. So if you have to offer somebody 75% slot, that's like $7.3 million or whatever. I don't know that JoJo Parker's a $7.3 million player for people. That might be a little high. And then you throw in Ike Irish, who might be the best college all-around hitter. Ike Irish did not take a physical, so he's rumored could be a deal 2, could be a deal 3, could be a deal 5. So anyway, long answer for a team that's not the White Sox on the White Sox podcast. But Seattle, considering they're picking 3, I don't even know how many guys I just rattled off. Was it like 7?
Yeah.
And I actually don't think they're being disingenuous at all. I think like if you went to the Mariners right now and you're like, we're starting the draft in 5 minutes, you guys got to be ready to go. They'd be like, oh my God, like we don't know who we want. Like they have to figure it out on the fly. Like I honestly think that even though they're picking 3, and you could probably cut like I said, if Kate Anderson's there, it's easy, but you can cross him off. I don't think they really. I don't think there's a clear favorite there, and I think that kind of you'll see that with later picks too. Like when I talk to teams, they'll be like, "Well, who's going to be there for me?" And then even if they know, they're still kind of comparing like a lot of the high school shortstops or the pitchers.
Got it. So with that said, is Seattle the most likely to surprise us in the first 10 picks, or is there another team that drafts before the White Sox that could throw a wrench in the entire system and take someone that maybe isn't even in MLB.com's top 10 or even the Sox Machine top 10 rankings?
I don't think so. Like Ike Irish is 11th on our rankings. I don't know where he is on your rankings. But like
I have him number 9.
Yeah, so we're hearing that one. Like he could go like I think also because he didn't take the physical. Like it's not, and again, I don't know what Ike Irish's number would be, but let's say Ike Irish is going to go 8 to 12. That's like, well, let's say he's a $6.5 million player. Like if you take him at 2, the Angels could give him 7, and that's saving more money than they could otherwise. But no, I would never say never. Like yes, somebody else could just kind of blue, and I'm just picking a team at randomly. The Blue Jays at 8 decide, okay, we're going to take a discount guy for 25% off and take a $5 million player at 8. And that could happen, but we're not hearing that. I think Ike Irish will go higher than everybody has him ranked, probably on a deal to someone. Because I think, we didn't talk about the Cardinals much. Cardinals picked 5th. And I think they're kind of like Seattle in that they'd really like Kate Anderson or Ethan Holliday, and they're probably not going to be there. And I don't know that the Cardinals know who they want if both those guys are gone. And so at the end of the day, they could say, you know what, we don't love these guys, but we could take Ike Irish. And now granted, they could take a guy for 25% or 25% off, and it's going to be around $6 million anyway. So, you could probably get a number of guys, but anyway, I'm rambling now. Ike Irish is probably the one wild card who would surprise the casual fan. And you can never say never, but I think everybody else, as of right now, we think are going to play it straight up. So, which is not great. Like, if you're the White Sox, you're hoping that, 3 teams cut deals in front of them. Just ran hey, somebody cuts a deal with Merrick Houston, or somebody cuts a deal with Brendan Summerhill. If you're the White Sox, you're like, yeah, that's great because it pushes more guys down. But I think the White Sox are very much in that position of, okay, we're picking 10th, and there's probably 9 or 10 guys who belong in the upper tier players, and they're going to be looking at 1 or 2 of them when it gets to their pick.
A Sox Machine public service announcement. We have brand new items in the Sox Machine store. With the weather heating up, we've got new Adidas Sox Machine polos, perfect for your company outings, casual Fridays, and of course the golf course. It's part of our media attire as well when covering events. You can grab any of these 3 styles that we now have in the store. We've got new Sox Machine coffee mugs to sip from while you read Jim and James in the morning, new stainless steel water bottles with the Sox Machine logo, and fanny packs, which fanny packs have been very helpful entering Major League Baseball stadiums with all the bag restrictions. Visit shop.soxmachine.com to check out the new gear. And for Sox Machine subscribers, remember your discount code to get an additional discount when checking out. Again, the URL is shop.soxmachine.com.
Filtrete brand air filters help capture unwanted particles in your indoor air, like dust, pet dander, bacteria, and viruses, and have similar airflow across all MERV and NPR levels. Now available in more dimensions and sizes.
KFC Phillips are back. 4 delicious meals for just $7 each. That's great news for everyone, except the driver in F1 the movie who only gets 2.5 seconds for a pit stop. 2.5 seconds? That's not enough time to indulge in juicy original recipe chicken. Oh, and he's gone. creamy mashed potatoes, sweet pie poppers, and a medium drink? Well, the rest of us can take as long as we'd like to enjoy any KFC $7 fill-up. Then see F1 the movie starring Brad Pitt. Only in theaters June 27th. Rated PG-13. Prices and participation vary while supplies last. Taxes, tips, and fees extra.
So let's talk about that watch board for the White Sox. In your latest mock draft, you have Mississippi prep shortstop JoJo Parker to the White Sox at pick 10. And this whole concept that I've been running all year long on SoxMachine.com, Jim, this watch board, trying to create a radar for White Sox fans and helping them track certain prospects. So when it does come to draft day, they're not caught out of the blue and who this guy is. They have learned about them, whether that's on the college or the prep side. Building a watch board for the White Sox 5 prospects to put them on the radar. What I have on my personal list is JoJo Parker, number 1, Billy Carlson, the shortstop from Corona High School, Seth Hernandez, his teammate. I have Casey Cunningham, the other prep shortstop from Texas. And then the 2 college bats. Thank you to White Sox director of hitting Ryan Fuller for posting Instagram stories. Tennessee second baseman Gavin Killian and Wake Forest shortstop Merrick Houston, in which the White Sox have held private workouts with both of those players in recent weeks. Those are the 5 that I have. So I'm looking at all infielders for the White Sox if I'm creating this watch board. Is there someone else that you would maybe swap out in the White Sox watch board?
Nah, man, I like your watch board very much, Josh. Those would probably be my top 4 guys. Your top 4 would be my top 4. I don't know who number 5 would be. Like, I guess it could be Mary Key. Like, and I don't think they'll have to go to, like, I don't think there's a scenario where all 4 of those guys will be gone. Okay. And they're like, oh my gosh, Merrick Houston, like we're gonna have to do Merrick Houston at 10. So yeah, I think I think we're definitely in sync there. It's funny because in my last mock, I had Billy Carlson going 9 to the Reds, and I had JoJo Parker going 10. Like, I feel like JoJo Parker to the White Sox, as much as you can be a lock at 10, feels like kind of a lock to me if it happens. But while I was at a 4th of July party, I got a text from somebody with the Reds who were like, I don't think we do Billy Carlson if he's there at 9. So I was like already in my head, like, man, if I'm redoing my mock, then I'm going JoJo Parker at 9 and Billy Carlson at 10. Now, and the flip side, the flip though on JoJo Parker is, while I do feel like that's the guy, and I keep putting him there, I think everybody loves JoJo Parker.
Yeah.
Like everybody loves Joe. Like we didn't talk about this with the Angels, but the Angels, it doesn't make sense to me, have spent a lot of time on high school shortstops at 2, which is not their MO. They take the fast-moving college player. But again, with the 25% rule, if you take a guy took a physical, you'd have to give the guy around $7.7 million at 2. That would be the minimum. And they spent a lot of time on JoJo Parker and Daniel Pierce, who's probably going in the, I don't know, 11 to 15 range. Eli Willits, who is probably going to go higher in the draft. So you could take Eli Willits at 2 and probably work out a deal, although he might get a little bit more than that. So on one hand, I feel like they would take JoJo Parker if he's there, but I also feel like JoJo Parker, I can't see how they could take him at 2, but I could see JoJo Parker going 5. It would not shock me if that was who the Cardinals settled on, if Anderson and Holliday are gone. I know the Marlins like the high school shortstops, and if you had Eli Willits go off the board, it could be JoJo Parker at 7. I know the Blue Jays love JoJo Parker at 8, although I think they're leaning pitcher. So it's weird. Like, I think it's got to be tough being the White Sox, because I think that's the guy, realistically, that's the best guy who could get to 10. And I keep projecting him at 10. I think other people keep projecting him at 10. But my gut tells me, I can't, I never wind up putting him ahead of 10, but I don't necessarily think he's getting there. I just think everybody loves JoJo Parker, and he interviewed so well too. And like, you're not drafting the guy because of this, but the interviews at the combine do matter. And I don't know how much your listeners know about his backstory, but his father was paralyzed playing high school football however many years ago. And he, I think married his high school sweetheart. They've had kids. His father's a judge, was a very successful lawyer. The kids like help take care of everybody loves him. And like, I had one team tell me, the Picks had the White Sox, that it was like maybe the best interview they did at the combine. and some fans might be like, oh, come on. But like they said, like the traits he exuded in the interview were traits associated with great big leaguers. Like it's weird. Like, even though it's a 30-minute interview, I do think, and again, you could say, it's mumbo jumbo. I don't know if I believe in it, but teams really feel like they can almost do like get like a psychological evaluation of the player based on what they ask them. And like if you're a hitter or pitcher, your philosophies, how you hit, how you throw your pitches, how you train, and they can, and like I know teams that'll be like, I don't think that guy's going to buy into what, when he struggles, we're going to have a hard time getting this guy to buy into what we do. So
Right.
but anyway, people love JoJo Parker. But I'm not, so if he's there, I'd be shocked if they didn't take him, but it'll be interesting. I don't know that right now he's number one on anybody's board when it gets to him, but I could see on draft day people like, you know what, we love that kid. Let's just take him. So I think the White Sox are going to be sweating that one out. Like when we get to about pick 5, like, okay, is somebody going to pop JoJo Parker here? Because he could go 5, 7, 8, 9, and that's going to be kind of harrowing 20 minutes to wait and see who those teams pick.
My confidence in Parker being on the board at pick 10 for the White Sox is very low, Jim. Like,
I'd say
25%.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say like 33%. Like,
okay,
like I don't think he's number one on anybody's board right now based on how it would unfold. But like I said, I think, and Pirates could too. But I feel like 5, 7, 8, 9 would strongly consider it.
So then that goes to number 2 on our list, Billy Carlson. Is there a chance that we could see 4 prep shortstops taken before the White Sox pick at number 10?
Yes, because you have like Ethan Holliday will go.
Yeah.
Eli Willits will go. I don't think he gets past the Marlins at 7. And you could see Billy Carlson and JoJo Parker go. And Billy Carlson is fascinating because multiple scouts have told us he's the best defensive high school shortstop they've ever seen.
Wow.
Like it's a 70. You aren't putting 80s on a high school shortstop. It's like a 70 defender. He's got great arm. He's up to like 97 on the mound when he pitches. Like I guess everybody at Corona High School is a 2-way dude because Seth Hernandez is like got really good power also.
Yeah.
The question is, a lot of teams I talk to do not like the swing at all.
Right.
Like he's got power potential. It's power over hit. Like stop if you've heard this one before. It's kind of like Colson Montgomery, like what he is now with a better glove. But like it's probably 20 homer guy. But it's weird. So on one hand, like it's always a red flag to me if you're taking a guy high in the draft. You're like, oh, we got to redo his swing or we got to redo his delivery. Like then it's like, don't take that guy and I'm no hitting expert, but talking to people, it's one of these things where everybody's like, oh, it's kind of an easy fix. He needs to do A, B, and C, and he'll be fine. So it's not like, oh man, we're not sure this guy's gonna hit. It's just like we just need to fix it, but it should be easy. So people are pretty confident. So I mean, you might be getting average hitter with 20 homer power or the Gold Glove shortstop, which would be a pretty good player. And so, but it's funny. Like I said, after I got that text, I was at the 4th of July party. I said, come in. Like this time of year, I always have the mocks swirling in my head, at least the top 10 picks. Or I don't know, if somebody texted me about pick 21, then I'd be like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing? But I was recalibrating. I was like, okay, if I was doing another mock right now, then I would have JoJo Parker go 9 and Billy Carlson go 10.
Okay. If the scenario does play out that both Parker and Carlson are off the board and it's between Kason Cunningham and Gavin Killian, which a reminder, White Sox fans, Killian was part of the White Sox area code team a few years ago out of Milton, Wisconsin.
They have to draft him.
If it's between those two, who's more likely? Like, is Killian number 4? I know I just put Killian number 4 on my list, but in this conversation, I almost feel like I should bump him up to number 3 if there is a debate between Cunningham and Killian.
I feel like it's 50-50. I don't know the answer to that because I also think both those guys could go 10, you know, if you have Carlson and Parker gone. But if they don't go 10, if you told me they went in the 20s, that could happen too.
Yeah.
And I don't know the answers to which guy the White Sox prefer. Like it's more, I'd say educated guess / instinct. I would say Cunningham, but I think it's close. So Cunningham, along with a kid named California and Gavin Feen, was the best high school hitter on the showcase circuit last summer. He's been good, but not as good this spring. He's He runs well, but depending, like I have team, like I think he probably is a second baseman in the long run. Like I haven't talked to too many people who think he's going to stay short, and I've talked to some who think you would immediately move him to second, although you would let him play short at least to see what it looked like. But he's probably not a shortstop. And JoJo Parker might be a third baseman in the long run because he's big and physical and getting bigger. Whereas Keelan, who got off to a great start at Tennessee, and then he had a mid-season injury. I can't remember what it was. He's one of the better bat-to-ball guys in college baseball. It's probably 15 to 20 homer power. I mean, kind of similar probably what Cunningham is. He doesn't run as well as Cunningham. He played some short because Tennessee had some problems defensively in their infield and guys were moving around. But Keelan is, and again, you might run him out as short, but he's 100% a second baseman at the next level. So I feel like it's the floor ceiling argument. Like Cunningham might have more power and he's a better runner. So you might have more of an offense, more offense out of him. But then Keelan just played, at clearly the best level of college baseball. Like he's cut above everybody else. It was one of the best hitters in the league, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. That's something I'll probably try to endeavor to figure out this week. Although I know when I'm doing my mock draft, I doubt I'll have them getting down to. I feel like I do my final mock draft, it will be Parker or it will be Carlson. I won't have to know if it's Keelan versus Cunningham, but I think you could make that case either way. But the flip side of that is, I think I had Keelan 21st in my last mock, and I had Cunningham 24th. So which is interesting because if I'm accurate on that, and again, when you're doing a mock, it's like doing a top 30 list. You can only put one guy at each spot. So it doesn't mean that hey, Gavin Keelan's going 21 if the White Sox don't take him. But I'm just suggesting that, let's say Gavin Keelan he probably isn't going higher than 15th. So maybe you could save $500,000 if you took Gavin Keelan. You split the difference between 10 and 15. Cunningham's probably trickier as a high school guy. I don't know that you're going to be able to discount him, but that could all play into it. I'd forgotten Keelan was on their area code games team, so I don't know. I feel like they should be 51% Keelan, 49% Cunningham. But no, I love your board, and I mean, if you were doing 5, if I was doing 5, I don't think they necessarily take him. I probably would throw Kyson Witherspoon on there, because if they're getting that deep, then Kyson Witherspoon probably has not gone ahead of him. I do think there'll be ahead of the White Sox. I think all 3 college lefties will go: Anderson, Doyle, and Jamie Arnold. I think Ethan Holliday will go. I think Eli Willits will go. Ivar Arquette will go. That's 6. I can't see Seth Hernandez getting past the Reds. So that's 7. So I think those are the 7 guys you can cross off the board. And then you have to see. But so anyway, I don't think they'll have to get 5 deep on their board. I would probably go Kyson Witherspoon. Merrick Houston, I struggle with him. He's a 55 or 60 shortstop. He's a definite shortstop. And that's kind of rare in college baseball because there aren't that many college shortstops who are everyday shortstops in the big leagues. But it might be 50 hit, 45 power. And so it's okay. I think he's more of a useful big leaguer than a guy you're building the team around. And at least at 10, especially if you're the White Sox, you like to kind of dream of okay, this guy's going to be in the front half of our rotation or batting in the middle of the lineup or Casey Cunningham could lead off. So I don't think if they get to Merrick, if your first 4 guys on their board are gone, well, then that means somebody got pushed down to him. That would be crazy. So I don't think you'll have your 5th guy will come into play.
Okay.
But if it did, that would be kind of cool. I'm trying to think if all 4 of those guys went, man, I don't know. I mean, Eli Willits would be on the board or Jamie Arnold would be on the board or something.
That's the one, I keep thinking, which prospect that I'm not expecting right now to fall to the White Sox most likely could fall to the White Sox at pick 10. And I'm guessing Jamie Arnold.
I would say Seth Hernandez.
Seth Hernandez, okay.
Because I he's a weird one too. You could argue he's the most talented guy in the draft, but he's a high school righty, and that scares people.
Yeah.
And I feel like he could go 3. But like I said, I don't know that I think they're going to pull the trigger. projecting my own mock draft a week from now, I don't think I'm going to have him going 3 again. I've had him going 4. I don't think the Rockies are going to take him at 4. I think they're intrigued by him, but I don't think they're going to go that pick. So anyway, I feel like he could go 3. I can see the Pirates taking him at 6. Like a lot of people last year were like Connor Griffin. We're not sure the swing's going to play. There were 2 teams, and I think the White Sox might have been the other team, if I remember correctly, in the top 9 picks who would have taken Connor Griffin over Bryce Rayner, and the Pirates took him. So I don't think the Pirates would be afraid to roll the dice. And I do think the Reds would probably take him because I think the Reds are best player available, traditional scouting, et cetera, et cetera. But depending on who gets to 9, like let's say like I think I had Jamie Arnold going 8th in my last mock draft, which is a little bit lower than expected. But what if the Blue Jays go JoJo Parker? Like, man, we love JoJo Parker. And then Seth Hernandez is still on the board, and the Reds are like, you know what, we're taking Seth Hernandez. So it could be. But I can also see the Reds taking Jamie Arnold over Seth Hernandez. So I think it's one of those 2 guys which would be great. But yeah, if it winds up being Merrick Houston, something crazy happened. Like, and he didn't take. I don't think he took a physical. So if they take Merrick Houston, they're probably signing him for, I don't know, like $4 million. Like, can you imagine the reaction if the White Sox take a guy at 10 with better players on the board and then sign him for $4 million? I like that would be a bad look.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Well, we got this fan question from Doug Whisker, and Doug wrote to us: should the White Sox take a shortstop or outfielder at pick 10 of the first round, even if they could have a pitcher higher on their board? And I guess if this hypothetical, Seth Hernandez or Jamie Arnold were available at pick 10, and you still had like Billy Carlson and Casey Cunningham, should the White Sox take Carlson or Cunningham over Hernandez or Arnold?
Yes. I mean, no, I'm sorry. The reverse. I thought you were going to ask me the question the other way. They should take the best player available because, like, the White Sox have a lot of needs. You can't draft when you're in a situation like the White Sox are. You can't say, "Oh, we have to get a shortstop." Like, and I know he mentioned outfielders. I don't. The only outfielder I could see them taking there would be Ike Irish. Would be the only one. And I don't see that happening.
I just haven't heard the White Sox on Ike Irish all year.
No, I haven't either. I don't think he's even going to get to him. But I'm saying I was just trying to think if they took an outfielder, who would it be? And it would be Ike Irish. There's no other outfielder you could take that high. I'm trying to think.
A month ago, maybe Jace Laviette, but no.
Oh, yeah, you can't. If they took Laviette, who came into the year's projected number 1 or 2 pick, and like, oh, look, he's good. And there was swing and miss coming in here, but he had like 258 with like a 25% strikeout rate.
Yeah.
I don't think that would be a great pick at 10. But no, I think you have to take whoever you think the best player is. If you have, like, I could see that maybe, and I don't know this because I haven't really projected him get to like high school right-hander. We don't necessarily want to take that at 10. Okay. But I don't think they take, like, and like you said, like I can't imagine the scenario where it would be Arnold and JoJo Parker's on the board. Or, Arnold, like, to be like what I said about Billy Carlson. If it's Jamie Arnold versus Billy Carlson, and I might be wrong long term, the fact that I feel like I have to remake Billy Carlson's swing, I would take Jamie Arnold.
Got it.
But yeah.
And then for the later rounds, should White Sox fans prepare to see the team start prep heavy in the first, second, maybe even third rounds of this upcoming draft?
I think it depends on who's there, honestly. Like, look, they've not been afraid to take high school players with those picks. Like we could joke. I haven't. We could pull up their area code roster from last year and start looking at who.
Yeah, I already got that. So you got Jaden Fosk, who's the LSU.
Fauski's not going to get to him. He's going in the sandwich round. You can't have him.
Okay, can't have him. I got Cameron Appenzeller, who's
I don't
ranked
think
58.
No, he was throwing 85, 87 from us. I think he's going to go to Tennessee. Like now, that would be interesting because he was better last summer, but like he played basketball and he didn't like I just don't ever think he was in prime baseball shape and his velocity was down. It's not hurt, but just down. And so on one hand, I'd say there's no way he's not going to go to Tennessee. I just don't think you're going to pay him. But who knows? Like maybe the White Sox feel like, look, this was a guy who was going to be, people thought, a mid-first round pick, and he's a bargain in the second round. So I will say I think he's going to Tennessee, but maybe. Who else we got on that roster?
And then the third one is Ethan Moore, who's ranked 100.
Ethan Moore could happen because he did not have a good spring, but he was good last summer. And I keep getting told that he's signable, that he might be more signable, and that he might go higher than I think. So I could see Ethan Moore if we're mocking out the White Sox draft, let's go Ethan Moore in the 3rd round to the White Sox.
Okay.
I want full credit. We need to remember if that happens.
I will. We're recording this, so we will have it.
And that happens. That's funny. Now I'm like, I really don't think Appenzeller's going to sign.
Yeah. Okay.
But it'd be interesting if the White Sox are like, you know what? He wasn't hurt. He just, wasn't like 100% coming out of basketball. He just got a late start, and we're stealing him in the 2nd round, and he was on our area code team. So we'll see on that one. That's I'm intrigued.
Yeah, so if I can't have Jaden, who I've been mocking to the White Sox, to pick 44 all year long, he won't get there anymore.
I don't think.
You got some area guys, Jack Bauer, who impressively has hit 102, 103 miles per hour in bullpen sessions in Lincoln Way East. And then you got Matthew Fisher from Evansville, Indiana, because we always have to have a Prep Indiana player on the radar for the White Sox.
And it's funny because that might be our best guess at 44, because I did not have him in my top 43. I've had him in the top 43 before, and he's, we know Mike Shirley loves his Indiana players.
Yeah.
And Matthew Fisher's very good, and very polished. But it's not overwhelming. It's like he'll touch 95, but there's also times where he'd pitch 88 to 91. So it's not like it's wow stuff where somebody's giving that guy $5 million at pick 34. So there you go. I think we're going
3 Prep players in the first 3 rounds for the White Sox.
Could be what we're saying: Billy Carlson, Matthew Fisher, and Ethan Moore, top 3 picks.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's what we're saying. The White Sox suddenly go from complaining about the NIL last year to taking 3 Prep players in the first 3 rounds.
Were they? Now you've intrigued. What were they complaining about the NIL? What was
the first thing that Mike Shirley said after drafting Hagen Smith was his issues negotiating with agents and Prep players in the NIL on how Prep players should take the opportunity now to join a professional baseball team to get that experience and be on a faster runway to the majors than chasing money.
Okay.
Sure. So hopefully we don't get that spiel again. But to wrap up this podcast, this is an important draft for the Chicago White Sox because, as I mentioned at the top of the show, they do have 4 top 40 prospects in the MLB.com top 100, but you already got Kyle Teal on the White Sox. He'll graduate soon. Colson Montgomery will graduate eventually this season. So the White Sox will be just left with 3 top 100 prospects and Noah Schultz, Hagen Smith, and Braden Montgomery. The White Sox they still need a lot of help. And with this draft being so important, even next year's draft as well, Jim, because Luis Roberts just not providing anything. So on the trade front, the White Sox are not going to get an opportunity to add more impact prospects to their pipeline. This question from Andrew Siegel, I think, is something that's been in the back of my mind because he wrote to us, looking at the last 12 years of the White Sox first-round picks, nobody is on the White Sox roster. Only 3 of them are still in the majors. Why do you think the White Sox have failed in developing and maintaining their first-round picks? And my perspective to Andrew's question is we're dealing with the new White Sox front office, a new player development staff, so they still need some time to gain their footing and trying to find some positive success stories. And I think they have this year they've already called up 11 players, Jim, to make their rookie debuts in 2025. So we're still learning. I think the White Sox are still learning. But moving forward, is there like a particular bad trend that you saw with the White Sox and their first round picks that this White Sox front office needs to avoid that same pitfall?
It's tough because I always say when you look at the draft, to me, you have to look at how players were evaluated at the time of the draft. It's easy to look back now and say Andrew Vaughn.
Sure.
What a terrible, terrible pick that was. But at the time, Andrew Vaughn was kind of the consensus clear number 3 guy in the draft. And I don't fault the White Sox for taking him.
The only player at that draft, though, that I was advocating for was C.J. Abrams. I thought the decision was between Abrams and Vaughn.
Yeah, but it just, I think they were looking, and that was a team that was getting ready to win. And they were looking for guys who a tiebreaker would be like, hey, this guy can make our lineup pretty quick.
Right.
I don't blame him for Vaughn. I was a huge Carson Fulmer fan. That one didn't work out. Like, I don't think it helped that they tried to switch his delivery up pretty quick in his career. As you know, I was not a Zach Collins fan. Madrigal was a tough one. Like I mean, if we go back and listen to our podcasts for that year, like it was like I was just torn because he was the best player in college baseball for 2 years. Those were two great Oregon State teams. One won the national championship. The other one, I think, had 5 losses until they lost 2 games in a row in Omaha. Um, but you looked at the tools and you're like, what is Nick Madrigal? Although again, at the time, it kind of made sense for the White Sox. Like, they were a team that's getting ready to win. It's like, we're not asking Nick Madrigal to carry the team. He's going to hit and get on base and be this heady, like all these things that he just wasn't when he got to Chicago. So I don't like think any of that. Like, I wasn't a big Zach Collins fan, as you know. But like most of their picks, like Garrett Crochet, that was a great pick. Colson Montgomery, we'll see how it pans out. But before last year, you'd be like, people were like, they stole him at 22. That was a great pick. And Jacob Gonzalez, we'll see. I feel like they kind of got stuck, wrong place, wrong time in the first round. Pick 13's Matt Shaw, pick 14's Kyle Teal, who at least they traded for. And those guys are gone. And then Jacob Gonzalez is on your board. But Noah Schultz, I mean, that looks like a great pick. Like, nobody saw that one coming. Hagen Smith, that makes a lot of sense. So I don't think it was the picks. I think, and like you said, things are changing. I think if you go to the, all the way back, like, look, I think people have talked about this. Like, the White Sox were probably, I guess, old fashioned is a nice way to put it, like in a lot of ways of player development. And I do think that when Chris Getz came in as farm director, I think they worked to change some of that. But you could also say it wasn't. Jerry Reinsdorf was very loyal to the people who worked for him. So it wasn't like when Chris Getz came in as farm director and was starting to try to modernize some things that they just cleared out everybody. It was like still the same people there. And, you've seen since Chris has been GM, he's brought in more people from the outside. And so it's like, I do think from a development standpoint that the White Sox were probably behind a lot of teams. And like, I don't know that, like, again, your first round picks aren't raw balls of clay that, like, you're like, oh man, this guy's a project. I mean, like, I don't blame the development system for screwing up Nick Madrigal or Andrew Vaughn. And those guys both went around the area of the draft where they were supposed to go. They just turned out to not be very good. So I guess I don't have any, I'm not worried about what the organization's going to do to whoever they get at 10. And I do think if you look at the White Sox now compared to 10 years ago, if we had some kind of ranking on how close to the cutting edge is a farm system in terms of development, the White Sox were probably near the bottom 10 or so years ago. And I don't know, they're not number one, but they might be one of the more improved farm systems in those rankings 10 years ago to now. So I'm not concerned about the development. And like I said, most of those picks, I think, were legitimate picks at the time. I mean, Tim Anderson was a great pick. Rodon was much better than the two players who went ahead of him. Jake Berger is going to have a decent career. Like, I think that one they took a little higher than some teams would. But he got hurt and he still bounced back and he's going to have a decent career. So Zach Collins, I didn't love the pick, but it wasn't like Zach Collins was like the 30th best prospect in the draft. Zach Collins has, as you heard me say every time we had talked about him for like 5 years, Zach Collins, his scouting report literally never changed. He had power and he drew walks, but he didn't really hit. And he had a good arm, but he couldn't really catch. And that literally, I wrote the same report on Zach Collins like 7 years in a row for the White Sox, top 30. But no, I don't look at their picks and be like, man, they were just taking some crazy picks. And I don't think, like I said, I don't think you can blame Andrew Vaughn or Nick Madrigal because, they weren't developed, or Zach Collins. I just think Zach Collins kind of came in on the low end. Like, Zach Collins always was going to kind of be the best you're probably going to get would be that backup catcher, first base DH, who might hit 230 with 20 home runs on the high end. And instead he came out on the low end.
Yeah. I think moving forward, like from the draft strategy, the White Sox have been mostly sticking with this: shortstops, center fielders, pitchers in the first round. I think the pitfall is taking a first baseman that high in Andrew Vaughn and not even having defense or really jerking him around, having him start in the outfield and
Yeah,
then
that
moving
was
back to first.
Yeah.
That was not good. Madrigal was very much a second baseman. They really have to be like major league ready in order to take
And they
those
thought
types
he
of
was.
positions high.
Matter and like both those guys were like Andrew Vaughn got to the big, like, especially consider there was no 2020 season.
Right.
I think he made the opening day 2021 roster, right? I'm pretty
Yes.
sure he did. And
Yeah.
Madrigal got there very quickly also. So they both did get there, and they just, when they got there, they weren't what they were supposed to be.
Right.
I was very conflicted. I'm still conflicted about Nick Madrigal. And you know what? I guess he kind of is what we thought. I mean, he's a career 275 hitter in the big leagues. But the problem is there's just not a lot of on base and there's no power. And you and I talked about this in numerous podcasts. The thing that was just shocking to me, he was the best player in college baseball, like the best player for 2 years. And like the baseball IQ was off the charts. And you saw him in the big leagues, and the guys like making base running mistakes seemed like once a week. And like we knew he wasn't a shortstop because of the arm, but it's like the thing on him was like Nick Madrigal, batting champion, Gold Glove second baseman, and he's gonna steal some bases. And he got to the big leagues, and he was not a good base runner, and he was not a good second baseman, and then the worst fears were realized, like, oh, he's not hitting 300, he's hitting 270,
Yeah.
and he's doing literally nothing else of value. Like I mean, it's kind of like what Chase Mydroff has done, sort of this year. But Chase Mydroff wasn't the number 4 pick in the draft; he was a 4th rounder. So it's a little different, but yeah,
it is different. We'll see what the White Sox do with the 10th overall pick. But make sure to be following Jim on social media for the latest MLB Draft insight. He's on Twitter. He's at Jim Callis MLB. You can also follow him on Blue Sky. He's at jimcallis.bsky.social. Listen to the MLB Pipeline podcast as Jim and Jonathan Mayo do an excellent job, not only previewing and talking about the draft, but also checking in on the top prospects in baseball. And again, watch Jim break down the draft on Sunday, July 13th on MLB Network. Jim, again, I joked at the beginning, but I know this is a very busy time for you. Greatly appreciate you joining the Sox Machine podcast and helping preview the upcoming MLB Draft.
Oh no, I always enjoy it, Josh. I mean, I hope White Sox fans know how lucky they are to have you and other people covering the White Sox like you do, because like I said, I mean, I do this full time, and your board of your watch list, it's the same top 4 guys for me, like in the same order. So you're on top of it, and you always ask good questions, and your readers ask good questions. So it's like I think it's one of the best podcasts any team has, from a prospect vantage point. So I always enjoy coming on, and I think White Sox fans are fortunate. Like it gives them hope, and I still say, like, do you get this? I'll ask you this question. Do you get this? Because like when I do radio shows in Chicago, and I'm talking about, oh, like I like Hagen Smith and I like these guys, like, and I'll get like, oh man, we've heard this before. Like, why should we listen to you? And I always tell everybody though, like we had the White Sox as our top farm system somewhere in the years leading up to the pandemic. I can't remember exactly which year, but after they made the trades and they were drafting, and I always point out to people, like, okay, yes, like that didn't end as well as everybody hoped, but the White Sox made the playoffs in consecutive years in 20 and 21, which they literally had never done ever. Like I mean, that's their record. Most consecutive playoff appearances for a franchise that the American League officially started in 1903 as the big leagues. 2 is their record. And so like I would argue that yes, like they didn't, turn it into a World Series championship or appearance or anything like that. But I don't think we were wrong. It's just the window was stayed open much shorter than people thought it was going to. And you could argue about the reasons for that.
Yeah, I think there's a number of them. But from the rebuild process, that's the difference right now between what Rick Hahn was doing and Chris Getz. Like Rick Hahn, back in those conversations, Jim, we knew who his center fielder and shortstops were. Yeah. They had a veteran bat in Jose Abreu. You could see the building blocks on the position player side, Yohan Makata, Eloy Jimenez, Luis Robert. Right now, that's where it's unclear for the White Sox. It's a lot more of a fun conversation to talk about the future pitching staff for the White Sox and how dynamic it can be. But in the position player front, outside of Brady Montgomery and the catchers, you're hoping that Miguel Vargas is real. You're hoping that Colson Montgomery and Chase Mydroth could be something. But in 2026, Jim, they can have a brand new outfield. And I just don't know how sustainable that is for any team in Major League Baseball to constantly have to reconstruct an outfield until Brady Montgomery shows up.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great for them if there was like an outfielder who made sense to take. Like, I don't think there's going to be one at 10, but like, and again, you don't
Maybe
draft
44.
Yeah, but I was gonna say, if you had like the right college outfield, I don't think I just always think of Indiana. I don't think Devin Taylor from Indiana is going to get to 44. But if you had the right college outfielder get to 44, that might make some sense too. But you're right. I mean, that was the difference. At least when Rick Hahn was rebuilding, you could kind of plot it out and be like, okay, in 3 years, here's what the lineup looks like. And right now, like you said, you've got your catchers. You're hoping you have the left side of the infield, but you don't really know. Brady Montgomery. I do think Brady Montgomery will be there by the end of 2026.
Yeah.
Like there's a chance. There's a good chance, and I like Kyle Teel. The Brady Montgomery might be the best player in that deal. And so like that was a really good get. And it was, the Red Sox, the only reason they got him at 12 was because he broke his ankle. Like, if he doesn't break his ankle, like we talked about this, Brady Montgomery might have been the number 5 pick by the White Sox if he hadn't broken his ankle. Like, it's possible they would have taken him there. So, but yeah, they need some good fortune too. But we'll see. But yeah, I get that a lot whenever I talk about like, oh, like there's some building block. Like everybody's like, oh, I don't want to hear this. It's like, well, when we told you this last time, they did make the playoffs in back-to-back years. So
yeah, the difference is when they spend money, don't spend it all on the bullpen.
Yeah, well, the Rockies have run into that problem too. So
again, watch Jim Sunday, July 13th on MLB Network. Jim, as always, thank you so much for joining the show.
Oh yeah, great talking to you, Josh.
That will do it for this episode of the Sox Machine Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you just discovered the Sox Machine Podcast, you can subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. You could also listen and watch the podcast and our other videos, including our MLB Draft videos, highlights of the key prospects that will be seen taken in the first and second rounds of the upcoming draft on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/SoxMachine. Follow us on social media. We're on all the platforms at Sox Machine. You can follow our beat reporter James Fegan at JR Fegan. You can follow me at SoxMachine_Josh. We are on Blue Sky. We're at SoxMachine.com. James is at JRFegan.SoxMachine.com. And I am Josh.SoxMachine.com. If you enjoy our work and want full access to all of our coverage of the Chicago White Sox, the Major League Baseball draft, and other news surrounding Major League Baseball, have access to our comment section, and get an ad-free version of both the podcast and the website, you can sign up to become a Sox Machine subscriber at SoxMachine.com. Monthly plans start at $5. We also have discounts for an annual subscription. We do have a couple spots available in our Veterans Committee, which will get you access to our group chat, and you have direct access to both James Fegan and Jim Margulis to hear the latest gossip and rumors of what's happening with the Chicago White Sox. Very key and very helpful to have that information, especially with the MLB trade deadline quickly approaching. Again, if you're interested, you can sign up at SoxMachine.com. The Sox Machine Podcast is a production of SoxMachine.com. You're on for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.